Alright, so now I'm going to be discussing the article on abortion by Jarvis by Johnson. Alright, so in the beginning of this article, she states how some people have the idea to believe that a fetus is a human being from the moment of conception. And the author states on that belief that it is not a really well-rounded and well-argued belief, well-argued argument that from the moment of conception, a fetus is a human being. Then she begins to write that it is said that some people draw the line to choose from a point in development and say like, oh, before this point, the fetus is not a person. And then she begins to state that this also is not a well-rounded argument, more of an arbitrary point. She begins to bring up a slippery slope argument, how similar things can be said about the development of an acorn into an oak tree. An acorn into an oak tree. Because acorns are not oak trees, like, should we call them oak trees? Basically referring to the acorn as the fetus. Like, if we're starting from the moment of conception, should an acorn be also considered an oak tree as soon as it drops, such as a fetus would be considered a human being? The author then agrees that the fetus has already become a human being well before its birth. That's what she agrees on. She states how by the 10th week, the fetus has already developed a face, arms, and legs, fingers and toes. It already has internal organs, and brain activity is detectable. She also agrees that the fetus is not a person from the moment of conception. So she disagrees with that first argument. The author then begins to go into, I think it's a pretty cool metaphor, to explain a situation of abortion as she sees it. So she writes how to imagine that you wake up this morning and find yourself back to back in a hospital bed with an unconscious violinist. A famous unconscious violinist at that, who has been found to have a fatal kidney ailment. And the Society of Music Lovers searched throughout records and everything and found that you alone have the right blood type to help that violinist. Therefore, they have kidnapped you. And last night, the violinist's circulatory system was plugged into yours, so that your kidneys can be used to extract poisons from his blood as well as your own. The hospital director now tells you, look, we're sorry the Society of Music Lovers did this to you. We would never have permitted it if we had known. But still, they did it, and the violinist now is plugged into you. To unplug you would be to kill him. But never mind, it's only for 9 months. By then he will have recovered from his ailment and can be safely unplugged from you. Now, my question for you would be, what would you do in this same exact situation? Remember, all persons have the right to life, and this violinist is a person. And according to arguments from pro-lifers sometimes, this is what the author states, according to arguments from pro-life, a person's right to life outweighs your right to decide what happens in your own body. They use this argument against rape victims. When a girl has been raped, they state that it's the will of God or the will of a higher power, and you should not abort your fetus, whether it was not even your choice to make that fetus or conceive that fetus in the first place. So now you have the choice whether or not to abort it or keep it, deciding which life is more valuable. The author then uses this example of kidnapping and how you didn't volunteer your services, stating, like, can those who oppose abortion on the ground previously mentioned make an exception for a pregnancy due to rape, like I just stated? The author then brings the question of which life has the strongest right to life in that situation. What if the pregnancy could possibly threaten the life of the mother? Both innocent human beings. The author asks, who has the right to life? Does the fetus coming to become a person's life outweigh the life of the woman? The author then states that she believes that although both lives are innocent, if one life threatens the other, then the life being threatened should be able to defend her life against that threat. The author then states a claim that in some views of human life, the mother's body is only a loan to her, and the loan not being one which gives her any prior claim to it. Let me elaborate. So in some religions, some people believe in different religions which state that God has like control of your body, you know what I mean? So if it's, like I stated previously, if it's the will of God to conceive a baby from rape, then they will keep it, and they argue that it should be kept. And if it's the will of God that the baby should kill the mother during birth, then they argue that the mother should not abort it, and the mother will just, let God take her if it's her time. One who holds this view might think impartially to say, like, I could not choose between whether the fetus should die or I should die. Whatever happens, happens. The author then chimes in on this claim, states her opinion and her citing, and says that if a human being is to have any just prior claim, then it would be for their own body. So if a human being were to have any claim on anything in this world, it should be at least on their own body. That's what she says. Now, after stating everything and summarizing a little of the article, I've come to a question that I believe would be a good question for all of you to discuss. And this question is, so imagine if you had a daughter, all right? And imagine if you had a daughter that just came of age to begin reproducing, around 12 or 11 years old. And one horrible day, as she's walking alone, she gets raped and inseminated. She decides to not tell anyone for approximately 5 to 6 weeks, because of fear of embarrassment and shame from other people. She begins to start showing after 6 weeks. The baby begins to be formed. Already at 6 weeks, the baby is forming. What would you do? What is your moral obligation?